Good afternoon, guys. Um, so hopefully you guys don't fall asleep after just eating lunch and everything, but we'll see. Hey, my name is David Lucas. I am the KySTE Outreach Coordinator, and I've been in this position now for right at 10 years doing the Outreach Coordinator. Amanda Ball is here with me today. She's on my outreach committee that helps me with the different things, and she's actually been a past winner of it too. So she will go and talk about that side of it when we get to it here in just a little bit and everything. And so we're going to break down some things about how to go through and to what you need to do to try to better yourself to win this award, basically, and everything. Because there's a lot of things that people do that I think hurts them in the long run and everything because they rush things. And we'll talk about things as we go through a little bit about it. So we'll flip through these slides and we will do that. This is just one of the past winners that has won. You'll see some more at the end here in a little bit. So I mean that's all that is. You can go on. So first question, have you ever applied for the outreach grant? How many of you have applied before? Some of you. How many of you have won before? Just just one. Okay. All right. So yeah. So you'll be surprised on we don't get that many that actually apply each year. You would think the whole state and all these schools that there'd be a boatload, but like this past year, we had 43 grant applications. Is all we had. So and that's usually about the number. Anywhere between 35 to 45 is usually where we fall. So a good percentage gets um, money from this if they meet the qualifications. They really do. I think it's an average, and it'll be in here in a minute, but it's an average about anywhere between 40 to 45% of people that apply get this grant. So I mean, it's a good percentage of it. Yeah, there it is on the bottom there. The past 2 years, about 40% have been funded and everything. The others might have been knocked out because of things they did in the application, and we'll go through that. And we'll talk about it. That maybe disqualified them, or they didn't put enough information in, and we'll go through and we'll talk about some of that stuff here in just a minute. So, like I said, go back a slide. There, you're fine. So, but yeah, so I think I went through most of this. How many people applied, the total money that we get. I did want to go over that. Our money that is designated for this is all based on sponsorships, and all the sponsorships that you see on all the logos that are out throughout this facility here is all the sponsorships that have helped fund the outreach. So the platinum ones are right at the $10,000 mark is what was donated for sponsorships. The gold goes down to $5,000, and then you have the bronze, which is $2,000. I mean, so all those sponsorships, and we had more sponsorships this year than we've ever had before. I mean, we done really well with being able to attract sponsorships for this. The bad thing is we end up having carryover. Like last year, we had over 50 some $1,000s in carryover because people didn't meet the qualifications to get the grant and everything. So that carried over to this year. So this year we had upwards of over 100 and almost about at $160,000 that could have been given away this year. And so that's why at the beginning of the slide there, a while ago, the very first slide, it talked about being $15,000 that we're doing. The grant has always been right about 10,000 for the past several years, but now we're getting so many sponsorships that we was able to up it to 15,000 to be able to do. And we're also looking at some other things, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, with the carryover, about some things maybe we can do and going forward with some of the carryover money. But yeah, so total, like I said, this year was about 160,000, and we gave with the winners, we had 8 winners this year, and with those, it totaled right at $120,000. So we're still going to have some carryover to go into next year a little bit. So, and we'll go through some of that. You can go ahead. All right. So these are some of the tell your story about the grant. You know, what's the problem? Why are they failing? Why are people not getting the grants? Basically, why are they having issues there? We'll go through some of that and show it. One of the big things that people don't do is the second one. Prove it. What data do you have to show what the problem is? You know, data is huge. And we'll look at the rubric here in a minute. We'll pull it up and everything. I've got it linked in here, and we'll look at it. But data is huge because if you got data, and you guys know this, most of you all work for schools. Data is what will help you get to where you need to go. It gets you to be able to see maybe where you're lacking in an area and everything, and maybe where you need to improve. So being able to put more data in will help you tremendously. Um, how do you solve it? Now that you got the data, how do you solve it? These are things we'll answer as we go through this today. What resources do you need to solve the problem? Is it certain technology that you need, that maybe you need some help buying this technology, and this grant's what's going to help? These are all questions that need to be answered within the grant so our reviewers, because I don't go through it and score these. We have outside reviewers that are not on this KySTE board that actually review every single grant and score them for us. And they've been awesome to work with, and they're actually retired teachers is what they are, that have came back and they do this for us. So, giving examples. Giving example are huge, guys, to be able to prove what you need and why you need it. In a lesson, being able to go out and teach. Can you go to other agencies? Maybe not with just in your school system, but in your community. Going out into the community is something that is huge for this grant, because the more people you can reach, the broader you can make this, the better your chances are. The better your chances are with this. So, what will you know if the resources helped you solve the problem? Or how will you know? And that will be after all your data is what you want to implement. Is it working? If you were awarded this grant, can you prove that it's working, through it? Do you have some way to know? Go ahead. All right. Do you qualify? Members of KySTE, if you're here, you're a member of KySTE, because you can't, you have to pay your membership dues to be a member of KySTE. And the only thing that you can't have done is you cannot have received the grant the year before. So if you've won it this year, you can't apply for it next year. Is how it works. And, it's the only two big things that will kick you there with that. On the website, we have our timeline, which this timeline has not been updated. You can click on them. It should go to them. And so this is this year's timeline and everything. So, and we will update this coming usually the end of May, 1st of June is when we have our spring retreat. And we actually sit down as a board and as a committee, and that's when we update this timeline for this coming year. We'll update it, and but this is this year. It just kind of lays it out, and this is on the KySTE.org page. So if you go to KySTE.org, and then up in the right hand corner, there's a KySTE Outreach up in the corner. All this is on that page. Is where this is all linked back to. So yeah, so this is your timeline. You normally get roughly the grant opens September 1st, and it has for several years, and it goes to the first Friday in December. So it's normally the Friday after Thanksgiving. Is how, so it's a little bit long period of time. And I think that's what one thing that's kind of hurt us in the past because of the long period and the opening of school. So we're looking at this year to probably, so be watching the timeline, um, shortening how long the window is open, because most grants don't give you, 3-4 months of a window that's open. It's a shorter window. So this coming year, we're changing a little bit of things up. So be watching the timeline, because that will probably shorten a little bit because of some changes that we have made here recently. So go back. Okay, the application is posted out there. This is a PDF form of it. Um, you can't click on the actual link. It takes you to the Google form where you can fill out the application. That's all blocked right now, but because it's all closed. This is the actual application. It's pretty simple and self-explanatory what it asks for, and we'll break it down a little bit as we go through here in a little bit. I just wanted to pull it up and let you see it. Um, the best thing you can do, and it talks about this throughout the presentation, is make sure you don't just go straight into the application and start working on it. Download, the PDF, convert it over into Word or whatever, and actually make a working copy and work on it. Because this isn't something, and this is where a lot of people get in trouble. They wait to the very last minute and they hurriedly fill it out, and they're missing so much stuff. And the reviewers tell me that every year. That so many schools, they have such great ideas, they just didn't know how to put it into words, because they can tell that it quickly just got thrown in there, and it wasn't, the way it needed to be, or the layout it needed to be at all. And so, and I was just telling her that, because a lot of times the very last week, I may only have a couple grants that's even applied from September all the way through Thanksgiving. I maybe only have two or three. And then that very last week, I mean, we just get flooded. And you'll be surprised how many are applying at 6, 7, 8, all the way up to midnight when it's due on that very last day. We've even had a couple that's went over the midnight deadline, which is we don't accept because of it. Yes, ma'am. Yes, it does. It does, yeah, because all the main sections that require writings have a character count. And you have to meet that character count. And we've upped some of them, and some of them, with the reviewers' help, they know what they want in there, and they don't want you just writing all kinds of stuff. There's certain things based on the rubric that we'll kind of look at here in a minute, is what they're looking for in these certain sections. And you'll get to see some of the character counts as we go through the presentation, because we pull them up; they'll be pulled up here. So, but yeah, I mean, it is hard to do just on a whim. Yeah, yeah, yep. Mhm. Right. Yeah. Right. Right. And right now, I mean, you know, I know AI is all new, and we don't really have the guidelines, and it could change this year. It really could when we meet as a committee. But as of right now, I mean, that'd probably be a good way to try to look at it. Really? Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. All right. Yeah, but yeah, the FAQs are on the page. Any questions you have about the grant, um, who can apply, how much it is, the different things, is all on the page there. You want to pull up the rubric? The rubric is something we'll probably will work on a little bit this spring when we do meet. But this is the guideline right now, and this is what our reviewers look at. If you look over on the right, I mean, well, be your left hand side. Trying to think here. So it tells you the percentage. So this first section here is worth 60% is program design and implementation is 60% of your score. Is how they score them and everything. And these are the different, your distinguished, proficient, and novice is the different things that they guideline and look at. And if you scroll down a little bit, so these are the other things. Program evaluation is 20%, impact is 10%, and budget is 10%. So these are the things in your rubric, and you guys are very familiar with looking at rubrics and doing all this stuff. So that's what all this is. We have it laid out. There probably will be a little bit a tweak to it because we have talked about it a little bit. So if you go to apply this coming year, make sure you pull up the rubric. Don't just think, oh, it's the same as last year's, because it's very possible that we changed it. And a lot of times we do. We based on the reviewers and what they say, we do update this rubric and everything each year. Okay, you can go ahead. All right. Just like I said a while ago, and I told you it'd be in here, make sure you create a working document. Creating a working document outside of the actual application you're going to submit is huge. Work on it. Just like she was saying, that she spent several hours on hers. This isn't something that you can do just in a few minutes. It is, I guess, but it ain't going to be a very good one. Just throwing things together. This is something you need to work on, and build and get all your answers, because a lot of these things take some thinking. How do you want to do things, and how do you want to improve things? And I don't know if you guys have got to go to any of the sessions of the last year's winners, but some of them have been really good to go in and listen to what they've done and with the grant money and everything. So go ahead. All right. Something that's big, and we've got kickback, sometimes, not all the time, from schools, because the teachers will apply for this, but they don't tell their principal, they don't tell their superintendent, they don't tell their finance person, and so you have all this, and they don't go through and they don't tell them. And so, because on the Google form, the signature where it says principal or finance director or superintendent down at the very bottom, it's just typable. It's not a physical signature, but we're taking into account that you have physically talked to these people, because if you get funded, now you got to go to them and say, hey, we have to buy this stuff, and so the money's got to come from somewhere. Because with the grant, how this grant works, and where finance really comes into play with this grant is a grant that we don't give you the money up front. You go buy what you requested. And once you have purchased what you requested, then you turn in the invoices, and then we cut you a check back for the amount that you were awarded. So that's why it's so important to make sure they know that, because I get that question every year from finance saying, well, we never got a check, and everything. I actually just dealt with it this week for this year's winners. You know, some of them have already started to purchase things, and I've got a couple emails already saying, hey, finance wants to know when they're going to receive the monies so they can order their stuff. That's not how it works. If you read the FAQs, it tells you how this works and how it lays out. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so one other thing that you might want to consider too is talking to your technology director, because if you're buying something technology related, a lot of times they can maybe get that for a cheaper price than what you can as a teacher, or there may be some components that they have to get to go with it to make it work. So make sure that you're also discussing it with them. A lot of products also have a subscription base. So keep that into consideration too. How are you going to pay for it after you get the initial funding? That all will be addressed in the rubric as well, like the sustainability of it. So keep those things in mind.
Yep. All right, you can go ahead and flip next slide. All right, so these are some of the things I was telling you about. These are the big four that are in the application. These are your big four right here. Your question 21, 22, 23, and then 32 on the application, if you're wondering what the numbers stood for. So the needs, the goals, the impact of the students and learning. In parentheses, them are your character counts that you're allowed for these. These are your character counts. How do you tie together with the data for the first one, for your needs, your goals, your impact of your students? You got to be able to tie your data together with everything. So make it, and we'll dig into each of these a little bit as we go throughout this. Question 22 is your program design and implementation. It's 6,500 words. This is your big one right there. That is your catch-all for your rubric. That is probably that is the biggest question on there. That gives you the most space to type. You got your 6,500 words right there. This is where you really put everything in that you want to talk about into this grant. It goes there. Your schedule of events. When are things going to happen? So laying out your event, laying it all out, 700 words, and laying it out. You're not just typing it out. This is more, and it talks about it a little bit later. Making a list, almost like a timeline. I'm going to do this and this and this. Laying it directly out. How do you do this? So this is question 22, and 23 there. So this is exactly what it's worded in there. And in red is what this actually came from the reviewers. What you see in red came from the reviewers that they gave me, because this is so important that so many people mess up on, is this part right here. So many people totally forget to add PD into their grant, because if you're trying to make this, because you don't want to make it just for your classroom only. You're trying to make this either school wide, community wide, even multiple districts wide is something that, and we'll talk about that here in a minute, that is huge, because the more people you can involve in this grant and the more impact that it has, the more it will score and the better it will score. So remembering to do your PDs, your lessons, the different curriculum that you need, how the tech's going to improve, how will technology improve what you're trying to achieve, is huge in this area. But yeah, so these are all the different things. How are you going to fund it? Other than just the grant, because $15,000 is a lot of money to an individual, but when you're buying programs, you're buying technology, $15,000 isn't a lot. So, and like she said, if it has a subscription base, you got to keep carrying it on. And that's something. How do you fund it? Do you have these other funds to be able to fund it? And that's something you will put in question 22. How are you going to keep going with this? Question 23, like I said a while ago, this is your give a time schedule of your event. A list is best. Even the reviewer said a list is best. List them out exactly how you want things to work, to lay out. Okay. All right. From here, most of your work will be on that working document. What we talked about a while ago. Creating that working document is huge. The narrative section, be sure to do your character count and keep track of it. You can write all you want, but when you check it and you got to take things out, it's really hard to take things out when you think it sounds awesome and you're 1,000 or 2,000 words over. So keep track of that character count, which is huge. All right, program design section. Don't waste too much time justifying why you're doing what you're doing on these purposes. 21st century, exactly what the kids need, cutting edge to better prepare kids for tomorrow's work requirements. Instead, spend more time detailing what you plan to do, guys, in this section. Detail more on what you plan to do. All right. Remember to look back at your rubric. We talked about that a while ago, and I told you it'd be up here. Looking back at that rubric is huge because you wouldn't believe how many people and how many times I've done these little talks that have never looked at the rubric. They just go and write it. You know, kids are guilty, just like adults are guilty. Kids have different things that you give them instructions. And you say read the instructions. Do they read the instructions half the time? No, they just start and go. But adults are just as guilty. They just jump and go. So make sure you're reading the instructions, and the instructions are your rubrics. That they're gonna guide you through. They're gonna guide you through. Okay. All right. I said this a while ago. Be sure to address your PD. PD is left out of a lot of applications, guys. It's left out. And the best place to put the PD is in section 22. Question 22, and then in question 23, when you're doing your timeline, listen your PD out. Because there's people that has to be trained to know how to use and implement whatever you're wanting to do. All right, very few applications take the advantage of the impact of a program, part of the rubric. Very few of them do it. Meaning that involving other districts sometimes, involving other schools in your district. Because this don't just have to be your classroom, and it shouldn't be, because this should be a impact that is impacting multiple people, not just one room. This should be something that you can use and somehow implement this impact of programs. How can you do it? Can your students, or can you maybe broaden this into your community? Because there's different things depending on what you're doing. How can you do that? Move it out into your other community, or like your your city council, or just different things that you could bring in and show them what you're doing, having some type of impact on the kids, on the community, on the district, on just other districts, because you can have a working relationship with another school district would make this huge for you and other things. So for a minute or two, talk to someone next to you there. How could you, a school district in your region or state, do this? There's someone next to you there. How could you do this? What's a way? Okay, you want to come up with any good ideas? What do you think? Just raise your hand. We'll see. Do what? The question is, um, to how do you involve other school districts in your region or state within your project that you're trying to do? Yeah. No, I mean that's huge because I don't know how many times I know especially with STLP that you'll see students even send out emails on that saying getting questions just trying to get data for their projects. I mean, so that's being able to involve other schools and be able to do different things. So yeah, those type things are all things that need to be put into if that's what you're doing. If you're trying to collect data, because whatever you're trying to do, most likely there's a school in the state of Kentucky that's already done it or trying to do it themselves. And if you can work together with that school, I mean, that's really huge. Right. And some of this is gearing towards, you might be trying to get it, they might be trying to get it. You both can apply for the grant at the same, working together to create the grant, and both get awarded the grant and be able to work together even bigger. Or you might know a school district that has what you want and they're already using it, but you want to work towards it. So you're working with them to get exactly what you need. Right. Yes. Yes. Yes, because that impact is huge. It really is. And the more people you can involve, the more you can spread this and do. And especially if there's any way at all, I don't know how far your districts are. Okay. Especially if you got a district that's close like that, if there's any type of evening type thing or anything that can combine those kids where they work together on something, is even huge. I mean, these are all just suggestions. I mean, you guys can go different routes. You can go, but the more you can involve, the more you can make this bigger, the better. Especially these reviewers, just absolutely they eat it up and they love it. The broader you make this. Go ahead. Hey, these are just some more tips. Example: free PD for your regional co-ops. There's a lot of regional co-ops around the state, and they offer these free PDs. There's no cost there. Um, we talked about this a while ago. Joint projects with students from other districts, communicating with each other is huge. Applying to present at other conferences, not just KySTE. There's other conferences throughout the state. I think there was one that Utah that Teach Me. I mean I think they're like little 15-minute like lesson type things. So they're quick, they're short, and you're in and out. That you could do to present what you've done, and even probably involve kids at some of them. Creating lesson plans and the material for other districts that maybe are struggling or wanting to do what you did, because there's so much great ideas, and that's where this whole conference is about, is networking and learning what others have done. So go ahead. All right, program evaluation, tools and achievement. Be sure to include both the measures of effectiveness, and show how they would measure whether the project resulted in improved student achievement or not. You know what you're planning on doing, is it going to be effective? You know, if it's not, is it going to be worth the time to do it? You got to be able to show that the students have learned and have improved in whatever area you're trying to do it in. Which I know this grant, I mean, we get this grant is written for any type of technology. It could be a news broadcast. It could be the VR headsets. It can be, just anything involving technology. This grant is wide open to. We don't just limit it to one certain thing. It can go all different type of directions. So just know your evaluation and what you're trying to achieve from it. Go ahead. Be sure your budget adds up. You would be so surprised how many times the reviewers have sent me back and said their numbers don't add up. They didn't do their math correct. They said they wanted this, 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 and this. And they said it totaled to this. But when we add it up, it does not match. Make sure you're checking and you're double checking and you're rechecking. And it's okay to overprice things, because you got to think you're applying for this grant in, sometime between September and December. You don't find out if you got it until usually January, maybe the 1st of February. You might not purchase these items until, say, April, May, or even in the summer. Prices are going to go up, as you well know. So it's okay to overprice some to try to help cover yourself, because by the time you go to buy it, if you priced it 6-8 months beforehand, it's very possible the price is going to be higher than where you priced it at, because you can't lock in that price forever. So it's okay to do that. Just pay attention to things that are not allowed. One thing that people like to throw into their grants is furniture. Furniture is not allowed to be purchased because you want to redesign a room. But you'd be surprised how many people put furniture in their grant. And that's something that is not allowed. I mean, they still might get funded, but that part of the grant, we'll say absolutely not. You can't buy that part of it. Like if they score high enough, that part will not be counted. Yes. In the application, it lays some out what you can and can't on that question. Is where it is, and then also in the FAQs, there's some things there. Hey, matching and in kind. This is where a lot of people either they do or they don't. I mean, we don't require you to match it or have an in kind, but in the rubric, as you read there, you should consider it, because there is points for it. There is points for it. I know of a couple that won a couple years ago, and I was talking to the reviewers about it, and they actually they just had built a brand new school. They bought all this new furniture. They bought all this new stuff, and they used a lot of that kind of stuff to be some of their, not really their matching, but some of their help towards what their end goal was. And so there's different ways to go about this. Some districts will happily match. We give you 15,000, they give you 15,000. Some of them will happily do that. Some of them won't. So you just got to talk to your district. That's where it's so important to talk to your districts about and figure this out. The data shows that 89% of applications this year included match or in kind. 89% of them. And one application that did not include it would have almost certainly been funded if they had, guys, because they were that close to reaching what they had to. Do I? No, I'm not allowed. No, I can't do all that. Okay. That's a great question. What we do with that is if you email me and ask me, hey, I'd like to see my score, I will happily copy out exactly what the reviewer said about and what you scored across the board, and I'll send it back to you with their comments. Yeah. Do what? It's just outreach at KySTE.org. Yep. Yeah, you
And
just email me and I will send that back to you.
and that's something we've talked about as a committee, as giving feedback regardless of whether you get it or not. I think
Yeah.
that's important.
Yeah. It is. You can go ahead. See where we are. Don't miss the deadline. I mean, that's something simple. You don't want your students missing their deadline. When you assign things, don't miss the deadline. Basically, and make sure you're checking your spelling. There's too many things out there that will help you check your spelling. Yeah, Grammarly, you got all these different things. Check your spelling before turning it in. It's not going to count against you, but it just makes it look so much better. Especially being educators that we're writing and spelling things correctly. And once again, check with your principals. Make sure you got it. These next couple are just easy. And then once you've checked with your principal, your superintendent, whatever, make sure you take it and then you take your working document, you copy everything from your working document over to the actual application itself, paste it in, and you can go ahead and clip it. And then get your signatures we talked about earlier, and then just do your submission for it, guys. That's what it is. There is, as a committee, we have came up with in the past 2 years that there is a grade. A percentage you have to get to qualify for the grant. It has to be an 80% or higher. If you don't reach the 80% or higher, then it won't be funded. And so that's what we gear it towards. Um, we sometimes, if the reviewer scores one and it's like a 79.5 or higher, and we got the money, a lot of times we round those up because the reviewers will come to us and say that is a really good grant. Their score was just so close. Can you consider that? And we have. We do lots of times. We'll round them up. So, but yeah, 80% or higher is where we are. I'm going to let Amanda talk for a little bit because she was a winner last year. Her district was, and let her tell her side of it.
Okay, so I'll just give you a little brief overview, and then if you have questions, I'd like you to ask me questions because I think that's the most important for you to ask me questions related to our particular experience. So we applied for and got 10 MetaQuest headsets, the VR headsets. And I'll just kind of tell you my procedure for laying that all out there. And this is before I was on the KySTE board. So I didn't have any inside information or anything at this time. But I figured out, what my initial plan was, and kind of made a spreadsheet and laid out everything that it would take as far as purchasing goes to buy those items. And when you're buying something like VR headsets, you have to consider applications that go on those. You have to consider any kind of subscription based stuff that goes with that. Any kind of like add-ons, like say headphones, so that everybody's not hearing each other's headset. Cleaning kits. So that's another thing that I threw in there. At the time, it was a $10,000 max. So that kind of gives you an idea of how many I was able to get for that amount of money. And so I worked very closely with our technology director at the time. I had a good working relationship with our superintendent and our supervisor of instruction, and we just made a really good plan, a really good professional learning plan that was implemented in there as well. The bad thing is, I got all of this plan laid out, and then I ended up accepting a job in a different district. So it was up to them then to finish off my plan. But we have a really good relationship still, and they did that. I was a GT teacher at the time / DLC, so I had a little bit of technology world and a little bit of instructional world, and the students absolutely loved those. So I would like to just open it up to you all if you have any questions for David or I that we can answer to give you more clarity. Just let us know. Anything? Yes. Okay, so in my experience, I not only had the VR headsets for my use, but we also had a checkout system, so teachers could also use those. So we used our district PD day that we had every year, and I did sessions for teachers, and they came in and they put the headsets on. They used them themselves. We talked about the applications that I'd purchased, how they could use those with their students. They asked questions, of course, and I led them through lessons, and so stuff like that is is what I used in my plan. Anything else?
And that PD question is very good because it could be something that is, it might be a PD that you need. That's because you're the one implementing the program. You're very, maybe you need to learn more about it yourself. So it don't have to just be the whole school, even though like hers case, she was using hers to check out to the school. So you're gonna want, if you're checking it out to the school, you want them to know how to use this equipment. So it could just be in-house PD. You go get trained and you come back and you train them on how to use it.
And that's exactly how it worked for us. Or it could be something that everybody can watch a video on. Like maybe the vendor has a video or professional learning that they have on their website that you could use as well. You just need to make sure you detail that in your plan.
Any other question? No.
Okay, so we were in a similar situation. We used the VR headsets with our STLP kids, and they created a project that went along with that. I also went to other districts that were interested in purchasing VR headsets, and I kind of helped them get going. So that was and we had some family nights that some of our schools used, and had those as like a station for families to rotate through. So all of that stuff was community outreach.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, that happens almost every year. You have teachers that maybe move to a different position in another district or whatever. You just let us know, especially me. You just kind of email me and say, hey, and we actually just had one with this go around of grant. And was it you? I'm going to say I haven't met everyone just yet. That's one. But, that's happened too. I mean, so, and I know even in my district, a person won in my district a few years ago, and they ended up they won it, and then they left over the summer. Someone else had to take over, and so then they had to come and present and do all that for that person. I mean, so you're still required to present in the KySTE conference the following year, no matter if that person's left or not. Someone has to fill their spot.
So my former technology director is presenting right now in a different room over the project that I started, and I got to work on it until August. So we had some time. I used it with students. I did some professional learning. I was able to do the professional learning with teachers and all of that stuff before leaving, but my timeline was for a full year, so they had to pick up in August and carry it through.
Yeah. And I will tell you the one change that is this year, and we'll all in with this. If the grant winners this year will see a little bit different side of the outreach committee. We are going to work very closely with them. Like in May, me or my committee will be contacting each grant winner and seeing where they are. We're going to work closely with them to make sure they have what they need, starting in May. And then around September, October, we're going to contact them again and say, hey, where you are now, and it's something that we haven't done before. We've always just kind of left it up to the schools to do what they need. And then, like in October, we've sent out a survey asking about the conference and the coming or not coming and things. But this year, we're changing it up, and we're going to work more closely with each school district that won, and be able to build that relationship with them to help them and guide them through all this.
And that's not really to police or anything as much as it is to kind of support you.
Yes.
Because a lot of times you've written this grant, you've done your part, and then maybe your finance department's dragging their feet or not giving you the POs that you need to be able to purchase. So we want to make sure that everybody's supported throughout the whole entirety of the grant.
Yep. Yes.
That's why it's super important to do that on the front end to make
Yeah.
sure that what you need is going to be approved before you go through this process.
Yeah. Make sure you get all that, check all those boxes before going through all of it. Yeah. So, well, thank you guys for coming. I know our time is up. Thank you so much. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to email me. I said, like I said, it's outlook.KySTE.org. You can email me, and I'll be more than happy to help you in any way, guys. Thank you.